Just called to say my heart.
Ooh.
Just called to say I just called.
Yes, so Hairless here. My last Pentatonix reaction was a transitionary piece between the Avi and the Matt eras. That was Dancing on My Own. As many of you have guessed, we have opened the door to performances with Matt as the bass. A comment on my video of that previous reaction caught my eye. It was suggesting a live version of one of my favourite songs of all time. This is I Just Called to Say I Love You. The performance is from about 2.5 years ago, so it's not one of the first things they ever did with Matt, but I think we can be a bit freer now. We can do Matt reactions, we can do Avi reactions as well. Not necessarily in chronological order. I know there's still loads from the Avi era for me to explore. I've already received many requests for Matt performances. My Pentatonix list of future reactions is really quite massive. And our Matt era begins here. As I said, I adore the original song. It was one of my repeat songs from the summer of 2014, which is nearly 10 years ago, wow. But yeah, it's very nostalgic for me, this song. I really think the original was great, it's not too complicated, so it will be cool to see what Pentatonix do here with their arrangement. The comment suggesting this did say that it's 5-part harmony, so there's no beat. I think for that reason, it could be a good one to hear Matt for the first time. And then in future reactions, we can see how well he works with Kevin. You know, I always go on about Kevin and Avi working so well together. Also, being a live performance, assuming the quality is good, then this should actually bring out Matt's voice quite well.
No New Year's Day to celebrate. No chocolate covered candy hearts to give away. No first of spring, no song to sing. In fact, it's just another ordinary day. I just called to say I love you. I just called to say how much I care. I just called to say I love you.
It's a juicy one, isn't it? And there's Matt. There's no point me talking about it now. We'll go over the analysis. So if you don't want to hear my analysis on what we've just heard, go to the timestamp here. Alright, first things first, this is performed a semitone down compared to the original song. So we're going from C sharp to C. There's no iconic bass opening. So it immediately seems like we're going to have a calmer feel. Also, there's only one line being heard in Scott versus the fairly full opening of the original song.
No New Year's Day.
So, there we go, my introduction to Matt.
Chocolate covered candy hearts to give away.
Immediately he has a different tone to Avi. As someone who's only heard Pentatonix's bass being Avi, this is noticeable, but it's expected. He's a different person. My initial immediate thoughts though, I think he's great. From the minute or so I've heard, for various reasons. He's very pitch accurate, which I suppose is to be expected. If you're going to be the bass of Pentatonix, you have to be. He has a very smooth tone. Here, listen to the repeated notes and then the drop down.
I just called to say how much I care.
He sounds like an instrument, which in my opinion is so important if you're going to be the bass of any a cappella group. You don't want an operatic bass with intense vibrato who stands out. They could be an opera singer elsewhere, but when they're singing, you don't want them to be in opera mode. From what I've heard as well, he mixes his flat, straight tone with vibrato, with the wobbles. It depends on the musical context, of course. Here though, flat tone, and then he grows into a subtle vibrato. Just as the other parts come in. He seems to be very versatile. He's a bass, and one of the first things I've heard him do is switch to a head voice dominated airy tone. So interesting things so far. Funnily enough, I feel his bass is mixed perhaps a tiny bit too loud, but it's not really worthy of mention. With an arrangement like this with no beats, having a solid harmonic foundation underneath everything I think is super important. So the extra volume kind of reinforces this. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to hear the rest and see how he works with the group. So it's clearly a calmer arrangement.
I just called to say I love you. I just called to say.
But what about the harmony? What have they done here? So if we're to play the chords from the original song transposed into this key, Pentatonix is this. So it's the first chord that's different. But the harmonies are so juicy, you could kind of view these chords as different versions of other chords. With arrangements like this, with their harmonies, they're juicy, it's pretty much impossible to hear every part the first time. But the first time, there's always one, maybe two parts that really do stick out at different sections. This will be different for everyone, we all hear things differently. For me, here on the word care, it's Mitch's part.
How much I care.
That note there? That's because he is the dissonant note here. We have an A minor chord, and then his note. But also Kirsty is another dissonant note. Hers is up here. If we move them all closer together. So their arrangement again shows how carefully each part is positioned in the chord. We have A minor in the bottom three parts, and then the two dissonant parts plonked on top. Also, Matt's voice, it has that smooth quality to it where the notes seem lower than they actually are. For example, the note that we just heard.
I care.
I've not heard him go particularly low yet. Here, for example, that's an A2. It sounds thunderously low, but it's not. That's a quality of his voice that I think might get overlooked by some people, but I think it's extremely important and extremely useful. Just after that, we get a nice little jump up in harmony from Scott and Mitch.
I just called to say.
On chord, if you heard that. The notes that we hear are these. So Scott takes over Mitch's original note, and then Mitch jumps up, switching from chest voice to head voice, which makes it even more noticeable.
Called to say.
Then, a very nice layering effect here. People have commented on my video saying that these are called bell tones. Let me write this bit out in music. Notice how similar it is to the Bohemian Rhapsody. Just this one is much quicker and slightly different, of course. Alright, and then just after that is where we paused. We have this sort of A minor chord, but with Matt singing an F sharp, and then he jumps up at one octave. Alright, let's carry on.
Just called to say I love you. I just called to say how much I care. I just called to say I love you. And I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm liking the arrangement. It's always risky when you know and love a song so well how covers are going to be of it. I don't think we need to worry with Pentatonix. Alright, let's go over that second third, I guess, the middle section of this song. We kicked off again with Kirsty's solo, and I really like the build up into it. got a juicy chord with the lowest note I think we've heard so far in Matt. Then we got quick bell tones, ch ch ch, and then do do do, sustained chords. So there's a lot of rhythmic and textural variety within the short space of time. Just like they were teasing those bell tones for literally a second. Because they're now the main accompanying feature for Kirsty's solo. And they're growing with each repetition. The top line there. Whilst Matt is not budging from this note at the bottom. Dum, dum, dum. And then we get homophony. Every part besides the bass, so they're all singing the same words at the same time as each other. You'll notice as well here that they are moving in opposite motion to Matt. They all went up and Matt went down. Dum, dum, dum. Lovely, simple descending line, which is the new lowest note we've heard from him. That's a bottom E, which is typically the lowest note that you'll find written for choral basses. So that's considered low. And then he immediately jumps away from it. He goes up the octave.
All the Christmas joy you bring.
And then he has this rising arpeggiated motif. And whilst he does that, the other parts that are more static, they share the movement and staticness between them. For example, Mitch will move while Scott stays, and then Scott will move whilst Mitch stays. That creates a kind of swelling effect. And then the next bit, I love how Mitch is coming in with the highest note. And again, in my last video, I mentioned Scott and Mitch's hands. They make me chuckle, how they move them. And it's happening here again, except now Matt is getting in on the action, except his hand is fisted. Is anyone able to explain why I find this quite funny? I know I shouldn't. Oh, I know it's not supposed to be. But it is quite cool. They're creating a kind of wave effect from left to right. They're not doing that intentionally, are they? Right, then we get another Imogen Heap moment. I think why I always refer to Imogen Heap with Pentatonix as opposed to home free and voice play is because of the Pentatonix's members' timbre. Something about Kirsty with a female voice and Mitch with a sort of hybrid voice. It definitely creates this Imogen Heap effect. Yeah, it's nice. Alright, and then this bit, there's a very obvious suspension for some added tension. The held note when a chord changes, so that note clashes with them, and then the note moves to fit the chord to release the tension. Which part has the suspension here, and what are the notes?
I just called to say.
That's right, it's Scott going. And then just before we paused, we get this phrase where the overall motion is downwards. Pretty much every part is moving down, but all in their own way.
Love you.
Kirsty, the obvious part, she has this huge scale downwards. Matt just has 3 notes. And then Scott has his melodic riff type thing that he loves to do, where he's going down, temporarily moves back up, and then carries on going down.
I love you.
Overall motion down, but so much variety within there. Yeah, I'm liking this arrangement. Well, let's carry on until the end.
Yes, I mean it from. Yes, I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
Lovely. Very nice.
Ooh. Interesting chord to end on. I'll get back to that at the end. Yeah, there were some really cool bits from that last section. Let's go over the last few points, I think. It does, by the way, for a live performance, it just sounds very well mixed and kind of perfected. I'm no audio engineer, so I don't know what they're capable of doing with microphones live, etc. Basically, it's an extremely high quality performance and sound. Right, so the first thing that really stood out was this transition into the key change. What a transition. I won't go over it all, but they do some cool things here, especially what they do with Matt. The rhythms, they've been reduced to very simple common time rhythms. Homophony is introduced again. Everyone's singing the same words, including Matt, except he goes of my dum dum. So we get the instrumental bass feel, but also the choral homophonic lyrical feel. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Then we get the descending layered arpeggio with Matt at the bottom. And then he jumps up the octave again, like we've seen him do a few times already. And then he holds that note on for ages. I mean, not actually ages objectively, but in the context of the music, ages. And it creates some dissonance with the other moving parts. I wonder if these octave jumps that he's doing, is that something that they've started doing more with Matt? I guess I'll find out with future reactions. Kevin, he has a really, really lovely part there as well. So he's sustaining in his chest voice this note, and then he jumps down and does this. Working nicely with Kirsty actually at this point. Kirsty is really belting high with her chest voice. Notice how she's choosing as well to use no vibrato. There's no voice wobbles. It's this more direct and kind of piercing sound. It definitely catches our attention. Immediately afterwards, Kevin as well has got another very nice line. He goes... So I guess it's his turn for the octave jump. And again, he's switching between his chest voice and his head voice. And then just a couple more points, I think. Towards the end, Mitch then gets the melody. And then we get the next bell tone section again. And it's nice. They pass the segmented melody between the parts.
Yes, I mean it from. Yes, I mean it from.
Nice little harmonic shift there briefly. And that leads into the nice ending. That's that funny chord, and I'll explain why.
Yes, I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
I mean, it's not funny, but it's slightly peculiar. As far as chords go, it's actually the most standard chord you can get. It's a B major chord. B major chord, the root is B. This is a standard chord with B on the bottom. If you remove the B, you have the next note at the bottom. This is first inversion. If you then remove this, and then you've got the fifth note in B at the bottom, and that's called second inversion. So you can think of it like this: root, first inversion, second inversion. It doesn't matter where the other notes come, all that matters is what note is at the bottom to determine the inversion of the chord. So we end on this second inversion chord. Let's extend the piano a bit. If this were Avi, I feel like they would have ended with that B1 down here. Now, I will assume Matt has that range, being an a cappella bass, but it is still an interesting chord choice to end on. And my first instinct is because going down to that B below is too low. Now, there's probably another reason they've chosen to end on this chord, but yeah, I just think it's an interesting choice. Well, there we go, Pentatonix. I just called to say I love you. I love the original song. Pentatonix, as usual, have done it a big justice, I think, with this arrangement. And for a live performance as well, extremely high quality. This is the first time I've heard Matt sing. I've seen loads of comments about him. Some people prefer Avi, some people prefer Matt. From what I've seen, I think he's a great addition. He has definitely a different quality and tone to his voice, but I can see it working really well because at moments he does just sound like an instrument. I guess I'm going to find out a lot more about him. Let me know in the comments which songs from the Matt era by Pentatonix you'd like me to react to in the future. As always, thank you very much for watching. Would appreciate a like and subscribe. If you enjoy my content, want to support me, join the community, vote on future polls, you can do so by joining the Patreon or YouTube memberships linked below, and I will see you next time.